Winemaking's difficult because there are no right answers. It's an infinite number of possibilities and flavors, and it's a craft that will never be mastered. It's a journey. It's not just a product.
Welcome, everybody. Today it marks our 5th wine stream here at Palmaz Vineyards. It is a pleasure to have all of you here with us today. Joining me is Jessica Palmaz. I'm Florencia Palmaz, and unfortunately, as you can see, there is an empty chair today because my brother had his appendix removed over the weekend. We're happy to report that he's back home, safe and sound, and joining us online. And you can all send him shout outs and love via the comments. I'm sure he'll be groggily typing away while we're doing the show. On today's show, we've got some great things to share with you. Nonetheless, almost as if we planned it for my brother to not show up, we are happy to be releasing the Rosé. So it is all things pink today. So today marks the release of our 2019 Rosé. We'll be featuring the Rosé and talking about all the most delicious things about this gorgeous wine that is now finally open. Additionally, we have joining us later on today, Rob Crandall of the St. Louis Club, an incredible dining club in St. Louis, Missouri. He'll be dialing in here shortly. So in the meantime, what I wanted to share with you a little bit about the happenings and goings on in the cellar this week. We are today filtering the Brassos wine that we'll be bottling actually on Monday. So today marks, or this whole week and probably the next 6 weeks marks what we call the bottling season, where we'll be preparing and bottling all of our red wines. I didn't have any interesting photos to share, but we do have some on file. So these are actually the filter housings that we will be going down to. We went down today, and we actually do filters. One of the most unique things about our facility is we filter all of our wines by gravity. So we're able to transfer the wines that are sitting up in tank on level 3, drop down to level 2. They pass through these filter housings. We're very careful to not overfilter. One of the things we don't want to be doing here is stripping the wines of their quality, but we do want to make sure, being wines of such premium quality and very much ageable wines, that they are filtered just enough to ensure that they will be lasting in your cellars throughout the time. You know, for us, we make wines for what we consider investment grade for cellars, and that is at least 30 years without the diminishment of quality via our hands. So we're filtering today. We'll be bottling on Monday. The bottling line is also fed via gravity from level 2 all the way down to level 1. And we'll be doing this for the next couple of weeks. So hopefully in the next few days, I'll get some cool snaps of videos and we'll share those with you next week. Now, on to much more fun and delightful and perhaps a little girly things is our Rosé.
Not necessarily.
You're right. Not just for the girls, but it's definitely one of our favorites. You know, the Rosé was a wine that originally we started making just for us. We actually spent 5 years just drinking it ourselves. It is very much our backyard wine for the family. The winemakers were making this Rosé initially as the trial for anyone who works in the cellar. So interestingly enough, while Rosé is probably one of the wines that, from a wine drinking standpoint, we take the least seriously. We just sort of, you know, pop it young, enjoy it, don't age it, don't make it too fussy. We definitely love this wine for its lighter moment, but ironically enough, in making this wine, it's quite complex. It's one of the easiest to oxidize. It's one of the easiest to get wrong. So Tina, over the years, has actually made this be the tryout for the cellar crew.
Yep.
So I wish I had photos of this, but we, starting in about 2005, anyone who worked in her cellar team would not be given an advancement in their post or access to really do some of the more delicate actions in the cellar unless they could prove to Tina that they could make one carboy of rosé decently. She would bleed off the tank, give them a carboy, and say, if you can make this nice, I'll let you actually touch the wine next year. She chewed through quite a few not so talented cellar employees, and even a couple of marketing people tried their hand at it. And thankfully, they found that their talents were more in sales and less in winemaking without having to touch our real babies. So over the years, we did a lot of tasting of carboys of rosé over the years, and it was like, oh, that's nice. Ooh, that one's, that's interesting. We never really took it any further. But then, actually, I want to say it was 2012, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug comes to work for us. So Doug is actually Tina's, do we have a picture of Doug that we could share with everybody, Jess? So
There you
go. Doug is Tina's son, graduated from high school and immediately knew what he wanted to do when he grew up. He wanted to follow his mother's footsteps. He started interning here, and he was given his carboy to make the first batch of rosé. And it was the first batch of rosé that all of us in the family went, ooh, can I have more? It was really an incredible first sign that Doug has all of his mother's talents, and definitely, it must be in the genes in the Mitchell family. And so he started working as a full-time cellar here, eventually has become, and he is, the assistant winemaker here at the winery. And ever since then, he was making a couple of barrels just for the family. Starting in about 3 years ago, we finally were able to farm a little bit of Grenache just for the rosé and be able to give us the ability to then make rosé for general release. Well, general release, I mean club only, here in the tasting room, super secret. It's only 300 cases. It's a ton of fun. It's really one of my favorite wines, especially at this time of year. It's 80 degrees and sunny outside here in Napa. I know I've been talking to friends of mine all throughout Texas and Florida. You guys are in 100-degree weather already, and it's only April. So I'd say spring is well on its way. We are straight into, springy summer and ready to fire up our grill. So we've been drinking this for the last few weeks, thinking that it's ready to go to the public. This is one of the only wines that we don't consider benefiting from bottle age. So we bottle this in January and we bring it straight out as soon as we think it's over its initial shock. And just a couple weeks ago, we thought, oh yeah, this one's ready to go. So we're just releasing this now. So I'd love to have, before we get too deep into this wine, why don't we try and get Rob on the phone, have him join us, or at least on the video. Rob Crandall is with the St. Louis Club. It's an extraordinary private dining club in St. Louis, very historic. It's a fairly small membership. He was just telling me, I think it's under 1,000 people, about 950 members, all from the St. Louis area, physicians, doctors, CEOs, civic leaders, really a beautiful place, and has an amazing cellar. Rob, welcome.
How is everyone?
We're great. We're drinking a little rosé this afternoon.
Excellent. Yeah, you were talking about my old stomping grounds in Texas being 100 degrees and out in California being 80 degrees. Being a longtime resident of Texas, I will say one thing about 100-degree weather, and that's real men drink rosé.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
If it is good enough for Jimi Hendrix back in the day and for Brad Pitt now,
Absolutely.
It's worth it. You can just look at it and go, Brad Pitt was in Fight Club. He was in Legends of the Fall. So it's got a little mixture of both, a little bit of harmony.
This week, as soon as we released the email on this one, we actually had another pop star was brought to our attention from a friend of ours and a collector. Apparently, Neil Diamond did a song on rosé. I think rosé is the most sung about wine there is of all of them. Well, champagne always wins. Second to champagne.
Anything in these moments that's going to bring us to music and to singing, I'm all
totally. Absolutely. So, Rob, share with us a little bit your wine. I know you have an amazing collection there in St. Louis, and you and I were talking about, being the steward of such an extraordinary collection. I'm sure there is some philosophies and some, logic behind how you invest and how you choose to invest in that cellar.
What's great with the cellar and the advantage we have at the St. Louis Club, being a private dining facility, is basically half our inventory is active, meaning it's in print, it's on the list. It's a very short read of about 58 pages, so it's kind of skimmed through. The other 50% is in our aging program. So when you're looking throughout the world for a great 82 Bordeaux, a 2000 Bordeaux, an 05 Burgundy, we have them and they're secured right there in the cellar. So it's basically, I have a humongous wine toy box that I get to share with all the members and create a lot of great memories. So
that's fantastic. We being in the wine industry, it's something that didn't really come to my attention until we started really marketing wine for a couple of years, is all the extraordinary good times we have doing winemaker dinners around the country with private clubs such as yours. I mean, you guys did a beautiful dinner for us last year. We look forward to coming back and doing another dinner soon. I want to see that cellar. I want to drink that cellar. So I will definitely be joining you for whatever little gems you're willing to share.
We look forward to having you. It'll be a blast.
Absolutely. So let's talk about rosé. I know that traditionally, especially in fine dining establishments like yourselves, definitely it's red wine centric. It's fine dining in the evenings. Talk to us about when you love rosé and what's rosé mean to you.
So, and you hit on the point, but rosé is one of the most ancient styles of wine back in the day with the Greeks and the Phoenicians and the white and red grapes. And then we took off in Napa in the 1970s. Everybody's heard of the blush white Zinfandel. But the first real white Zinfandel was in the 1869. Going into a private club, I'm from a different demographic age-wise. Rosé has taken off in the early 2000s to the mid, until about present day, 31% of the imports coming in. So the challenge is, how do you take someone who comes from that wine environment to say, you don't drink rosé. Rosé is an inferior product. It's something we don't want to enjoy. What you do is you put it in the glass. And so right now it's 72 degrees outside. You have the balance. You have a white and red wine state of mind mixture. You get the complexity. You get the fruits. You get all the elegance to it. So if you're not going to drink a bottle of rosé at our table, start with a glass of rosé.
Yeah.
Nice. That's kind of my philosophy. And people
it's
that
the
really
ultimate
find out.
opener. Yeah.
It is a beautiful, beautiful opener. And you might be surprised. You might find out that, you know what? Wow, this is really enjoyable. What am I going to drink when I'm having, light fruits or a nice picnic coming up when we can all go outside? Rosé is definitely going to be the choice. I will also say one other trivia fact. Last year in the Cannes Music Festival, a magnum bottle of rosé from Provence sold for 2,600 pounds. So
and it probably cost like £5 to make, but okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was at the Cannes Music Festival, and it was actually Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's wine. But the quality is definitely there, especially when you have great Burgundy producers like Domaine Dujac and DRC that are now making rosé. So
absolutely.
I would say before you get left behind, come into the St. Louis Club, enjoy a glass of rosé. You might find your new favorite, and then you're ahead of the curve. You can be a trendsetter now.
That's fantastic. I completely agree. It's something, and actually, interestingly enough, my father was definitely a classic, big red, the bigger the better red collector for many, many years. And I would say in the last 5 years, he's beginning to lighten up a bit. They're not this, it's a lot of alcohol. It's a lot of depth sometimes. Some of these lighter wines are a little easier on the body. Rosé tends to have, it does have a higher acid, but it also has a lower alcohol. It's a simpler wine by design and definitely a little easier to be able to sit back and drink, especially in the warm weather. So I would say, I'm not sure that my father of 10 years ago would admit that he's a rosé drinker, but
I will say
Noon on the patio with a bottle of rosé.
Exactly. And I will say, to your point, talking about that big bold red wine and then moving to that rosé, back in like the Greek symposium and the like, the reason why they would water down the wine and everything else, because if they didn't water down the wine to kind of take that alcohol and that edge off, they found a lot more people were fighting. So,
Edge off physically and emotionally.
Exactly. So when you're at home with a loved one, you can't escape out like you usually would to go to work and everything else. If you want to stop that domestic argument but still enjoy a great bottle of wine, rosé is perfect.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That is one of the most unexpected wine advice. That's fantastic. Rob, talk to us a little bit about pairings. You know, sommelier palates like yourselves are always such a delight. Tell us what you're tasting. What is this wine ringing true for you, and what would you pair with it at home?
So opening up the bottle the first time, opening it up, taking a glass, I went, this is fresh, this is spring. This is the old maxim. I never thought I would go to a baseball game and drink anything but beer. I thought it was un-American. But if there was a wine to go with a baseball game, it would be the rosé.
I like that.
So what I got out of it was the freshness of the strawberries, the raspberries that were just jumping out of the glass. And I'm not talking about jammed raspberries or, jammed strawberries, just right off the tree, right? And Absolutely. There was a little bit of a green, like celery type note, a little tart cherry type note that went with it. So this morning I went down to the local farmer's market. I picked up some strawberries. I picked up some raspberries, chopped them up, a little bit of goat cheese, kind of mix them around, a nice baguette in the oven behind me. And I'm going to scoop up that little mixture, enjoy it with the rest of the rosé before the steak and the Cabernet Sauvignon calls my name.
Nice. Yes, well, so I do see a lovely bottle right there over your shoulder. We originally thought we were going to also present the Gaston today, but in lieu of the fact that Chris is homesick, it is his eponymous wine, we thought we would take a beat. We sent you that just to enjoy. We hope to be able to, open up some great Palmaz Cab and Gaston with you when we're in St. Louis next. So enjoy that after the rosé this afternoon.
And I will, and for all the members or anybody who's watching, if you want my review, Instagram, Facebook, I'll post it right after dinner.
Fabulous. Let's do it. Wonderful. Rob, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us your talent, and you're just a joy to be able to spend any time with. And we had so much fun talking with you over the week about wines and, of course, about collections. And we look forward to seeing your collection soon. Thank you.
If I could just make one statement.
Wait, yes. Actually, no, I'm sorry. And I'm forgetting something. I actually have here in a text. Some dear friends, Reza and Kimberly, are asking a question for you. They're asking, they're saying, can you explain a private dining club? Like, how does that work? If you can explain a little bit the membership process and what does that mean?
Yeah, so a private dining club is, if to put it in simplest terms, it's almost like a country club with no golf. There's no swimming pool, athletic facilities. It is basically based around hospitality. So award-winning chefs, we have J1 visas that come in from France to go with our spectacular French cuisine. A lot of French-born chefs to really pull that off that we do for our membership. You come in, you get the greatest experience as far as food, wine. We have an excellent mixologist, Joel Clark, award-winning, that handcrafts your cocktails right there. What I love about a private dining club, it's not just a dinner, it's an experience. And our members are not guests like an independent restaurant. They're family. I get to see people date, get married, have kids. Then I get to see those kids get married. And that's what I miss. I miss my work family. I miss my member family. And what's great about it is I've been there for 5 years, know a lot of the stories. I can't wait to hear all the great stories from all of them and what they've been up to. And we get to share. But we also get to share great wine, great food, great trust, so that way we can enjoy that old Bordeaux, that great Burgundy, that beautiful Napa Cab, and if they trust me, a nice little glass of rosé the first time we meet when we get back. So.
If I remember correctly from our conversations previously, the St. Louis Club is also the location of a very prestigious wine society in your area. Is that correct?
Well, there's two. There's the Camaraderie and the Tast event. So you have great Burgundy wine lovers that join that society, and then the great Bordeaux lovers as well. Sometimes it's kind of a civil war. You put them in the same room between the two. What's great about it is the passion these people have, the passion for food, the passion for wine, the knowledge they have. And we get to talk about it and experience it on a daily basis. It's remarkable. So I do, if you're ever in St. Louis, you don't live in St. Louis, you want to visit in, or if you're relocating in St. Louis, you want to be around the greatest dining facility in the area, one of the greatest wine lists, where we open bottles a little bit freer than most, at great quality and value and prices. Please come in. If you're not a member already, contact us. I will pour you a glass of champagne, a glass of rosé. We'll give you a tour, give you a little ambiance of the cellar and the like. You will not be disappointed.
Fabulous, Robert. Very well said. That's a perfect explanation. Thank you. Sorry, I cut you off earlier. You were saying.
Yeah, so I just wanted to invite everybody out to the St. Louis Club if you're not already a member. If you are a member and you're on this live stream, I can't see everyone or who all checked in, but thank you, and I miss you. I love you, and I can't wait to see everybody's smiling faces again. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. We look forward to being at the club as well. See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
So I just love how Robert talks about the fresh flowers and the strawberries. He's absolutely spot on. That's exactly what I got too. The second I tasted this, actually yesterday afternoon, I decided to kind of in preparation of this pop a bottle, and Christopher and Zoe and I were in the backyard having hamburgers. And before we even started with the hamburgers, we were tasting this, and the first thing that came to my mind is all my early strawberries that are growing in the garden right now. They're not quite sweet. They're not that, that super sweet fragrant. They're that early spring strawberry, and very also even reminiscent to the white strawberries that are a little bit more subtle and very more floral. And also a ton of floral characteristics, which is why we released this wine young. All of those delicate flower aromas, kind of like we were talking about Riesling last week, the delicate flower aromas that tend to blow off and denature very quickly in wines are really only can be enjoyed when the wines are young and when they're vibrant. And that's part of the reason why we want to release this early. Only having 4 months of bottle aging, it's fresh, it's floral, it's simple. It's supposed to be simple. It's just fantastic backyard wine. And Jess, on our table today are a couple of Gougéres. This is one of our favorite in-house happy hour bites. We make these all the time at home and here in the winery. Gougéres are essentially cheese puffs, French cheese puffs. The recipe is actually in our cookbook, and also I'm going to go ahead and post it on the blog this week on the website so you can have it. I don't get fussy about what exact cheese, and especially in these times, it's kind of how do I maximize my refrigerator, and how do I make do with what I've got? I actually made these with some Italian farmer's cheese that I happen to have in the fridge. You can use Gruyere, you can use Parmesan, you can use all sorts of any kind of semi-hard cheese that grates nicely. It's perfect for any of these cheese puffs. And it's a real quick pâté choux. It's actually a stovetop dough that you make on the top of the stove, put it into a piping bag, and you just pipe them out. They're absolutely delicious. And so yesterday I just took half the recipes, froze them, and then we can have extras in the freezer to be able to, pop in the oven, and in 10 minutes we've got happy hour, our favorite family tradition.
They're so delicious, and the aroma is just, it's very hard for me to not eat this entire plate right now.
I'm right there with you. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we go back to a little bit about how the rosés are made, at least for our property, one of the things that we really love about this wine is that a significant anchoring part of this wine is in fact farmed for rosé, which is pretty unusual in Napa Valley. Napa being such an extraordinary, prestigious valley tends to have the majority of its wines dedicated to to the highest value, which would be for us Cabernet. So it's very rare that you would have anyone growing portions of their land to rosé. But in fact, right behind my house, we've got a parcel of Grenache that is farmed for this, whole cluster pressed, and really makes the foundation of this gorgeous, just super light color. And then the rest of it is what they call saignée, which is French for bleed. And essentially it is the capture of juice from tanks as they're as they're pressing right before fermentation at harvest time. And those tanks are not just, willy-nilly. It's not like every tank gets bled, or, we just go into the vineyard and decide. It's really a very careful process. The wines that we choose to bleed are in fact counted and predetermined before we even pick them. So when they go out into the harvest and as they're tasting grapes, Tina asks for Doug and a couple of the other viticulturalists in the field to give her baggies of 100 berries. So they literally have to go out into the field, walk up and down the rows, and pick 100 berries, and then give her that bag. That is then carefully weighed, and then an analysis of acid and Brix is additionally done. But that average berry count, if over 1 gram per berry, prompts her to then decide whether or not that tank, when it comes into harvest, will be bled. We're usually only bleeding about 2 to 5% of those parcels, and we're not just capturing all of that for rosé. We really want only the really very delicate ones. We don't want any of that fluorescent purple, God, I don't even know, it's just like Chernobyl bleed. You see some rosés out there in the market just look purple, and you're like, nah, that's not rosé, that's kind of fuchsia. Pink is pink. Mm-hmm. So we capture those parcels that are saignéed, and then we will immediately go to barrel. We do oak barrel ferment this, but it is a neutral oak so that it has the complexity but not any of the oak characteristics. And then immediately from then on, it's treated like a white wine. So it's in fact transferred to tank. It is cold crashed, just like what we call cold crash. It's cold stabilized. Poor Chris, he's just squirming right now. We talk about this. So we will stop the fermentation just like we do with our Rieslings. We will do that through temperature, like we talked about last week, so that it can have all those delicacies and aromas and those floral aromas again inside. And then, of course, we will proceed with bottling very soon. I mean, so we're harvesting in October, we're bottling in January and releasing in April. So this is 2019. It is the sneak peek. Nothing else is released this quickly.
Yeah.
And just a gorgeous little wine. We're having a lot of fun with it.
It's such a pretty pink too. I mean, it really, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, we've actually had a few years that had a little bit of a deeper color. This one has really been, I think, one of his most really blush-toned rosés. So something interesting about 2019 in itself, I don't know if you can pull up weather data for us, Jess.
Yes,
but the 2019 had a hit of May rain. Unusual too versus some of its previous vintages, and this is what actually caused. So you can actually see those that spat of rain late May. It was right as berry set was kicking in and the fruit was really developing, and it in fact encouraged for larger than normal berry size. So quite a bit of our vineyard was in fact over 1 gram a berry, and that allowed us to make more rosé than we have in the past, hence allowing us to even talk about it today. I know that, Jess, you can talk to the business side of this. I mean, how you've managed rosé. You've been struggling to manage rosé allocations every year. So this is like an opposite for us this year.
Yeah, it's, we still only made around 300 cases of it, a little less actually. So still a super small production, but it's true. I mean, we were able to make a little bit more of it than normal. And I think probably the biggest benefit from that, other than being able to share it, is that we don't have to feel so guilty about how much of it we're drinking anymore.
Right. Yes. You're right. You actually cut the family off a couple years in a row too. So
I did. Whoops. But yeah.
All for our customers.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And these Gruyères are such a fabulous, pairing. They're just so kind of light and they were practically, made for the rosé. But you can pretty much pair this with almost anything. I mean, what else would you?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, after this, the wine director of Caracol told us, I'm going to try this with guacamole. Remember that was on our second episode. That was, I never thought about that. Yeah, it's such a pretty wine. So previously we always had this only available club only, correct?
Correct. And a little bit for people when they actually came into the winery. So physically on property here, but yeah, mostly for the club. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now that we have 300 cases this year, we're making this, correct me if I'm wrong, we're making this publicly available.
We are.
Via the wine stream. So we're not officially sending out a public release. This isn't going to any wine stores. We're not even going to allocate this via the email list, right? It's just wine stream and club. So.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
If you want to get your summer stash, how much is this a bottle? Do you have a sheet on this?
I do. So it's $45 a bottle, and there's just a little bit of tech data for y'all. But yeah, we've got, like always, our fantastic ambassadors standing by if anyone wants to purchase this gorgeous rosé.
Yeah, and generally we tend to, we definitely say, drink this now through the end of the year. This isn't something to go and store for 5 years in your cellar. At the same time, I've actually have in my personal stash a few of the wines, even 3-5 years, and they get, aged rosé is interesting. It loses that floral characteristic, but it definitely is, it becomes a little bit more of a red wine. It almost takes on that kind of really delicate Grenache characteristic, begins to show through a little bit more. But drink it young. This is the one that we don't want to fuss about. It's just beautiful. So we say this is a hot weather wine. Drink it now through September, and it will definitely be a rewarding feature to the backyard. So let's see, Jess. Since it's just girls.
Oh yes.
And Chris isn't here to correct us. I know that you got to run the memes this week.
Oh my goodness. It was like the memes were speaking directly to me.
Absolutely.
Yes. We had
what did you find? Your
fun
friends, we actually, it was amazing. It was like for rosé, you literally had all your friends give you fabulous memes.
Oh yes. We've got say when, I mean, that one, I don't know. I feel like that's pretty, hits the nail on the head, right?
And it's even pink. I love it.
And it's even pink. I mean, the memes for rosé and all the pink just, is very, very exciting.
Absolutely.
But I have to say, I think this one is my favorite. Sometimes I write drink rosé on my to-do list just so I can feel like I accomplished something daily.
Excellent. Oh daily. My God, dear brother, thank God you are not here to correct us.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, and then, the last is where there's a will, there's a rosé.
And with that, I can't agree more. That one is perfect. I absolutely adore it. Well, that's fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to be with you all again today. This is the highlight of our week. We can't believe this is already our 5th wine stream. Next week, we do hope that Chris will be feeling up to being with us at the table again. I know that he is behind the scenes answering questions, and we'll be posting this, and we will be behind the scenes whether or not he joins us. But also next week, we actually have a very exciting guest lined up, Brian Van Flandren, who is one of the country's hottest a mixologist in Las Vegas, who will be joining us to basically teach us how to drink with our kids. You heard me. And I'm not a completely corrupt mother. We make 2 juices in our kids' names. So my son is Nicholas, and so I make a vino de Nico, which is a juice of the muscat. And Jess's son Gaston, we make Gastoncito, which is a juice of our Malbec. We've been selling these wines exclusively for the children who come to visit us at the winery, and we thought, let's have some fun. We're all drinking with our kids a bit at home these days. Let's find out what fun cocktails we can do with the kids' juices. So Brian is going to be joining us next week from Las Vegas. In the meantime, we hope everybody stays healthy, stays safe, enjoy a little afternoon happy hour, and we look forward to joining you next week on the Wine Stream.
Cheers.